what would you say to those within our own Jewish community that think that this is a good idea?
Say they should be very careful what you wish for. Once these laws come in, who knows what it will be used for? Who knows who it will be used against? And we should be very, very careful with trusting the government, which has failed our community on many, many occasions.
The Attorney General is currently drafting federal hate speech laws claiming to combat the shocking rise in anti-Semitism. However, like many Jews, I say no thank you, because I can see what the Albanese government is really up to. And spoiler alert, it has nothing to do with protecting my community at this difficult time. To discuss the issue, I have Robert Gregory from the largest independent Australian Jewish organisation. Robert, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Avi.
Now, what are your thoughts on this proposed legislation, and what are your members telling you?
Look, there's no doubt Australia is experiencing a surge of anti-Jewish incidents. No one can deny it. But the Jewish community has zero faith in the Albanese government. We don't trust them to bring in new laws. We don't even trust them to uphold the existing laws. Nobody I've spoken to supports the creation of new laws. All they want is for the government to enforce the existing laws. And we've seen a complete failure, whether it's radical imams, whether it's extremist university encampments. They don't care about the Jewish community. So don't use us as an excuse to bring in these really draconian new laws.
My fear when I look at this is I say that some will take the opportunity, especially those that are perpetuating this hate, they'll take the opportunity to once again blame the Jews for more rules that are not actually designed to protect the Jewish community. Like, I'm not buying into the narrative that this is to protect the Jewish community. I see this and I see it as an example of government trying to take some more power and using the Jewish community as the excuse to do so. And once again, the Jews will be blamed for it. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yes, I agree. I'd rather the Jewish community was kept out of this. I mean, if the Attorney General, if Mark Dreyfus was serious about cracking down on anti-Semitism, he could look within his own party. They could look at Senator Fatima Payman, who's made some very extremist statements. So they don't have to look at these new laws, which we know they won't be used to protect the Jewish community. If anything, crazy as it sounds, it'll probably be used to prosecute members of the Jewish community. So it's a real risk with bringing in these type of laws.
How do you think they're getting away with using the Jewish community and what's going on at the moment to try pass such legislation?
Well, I think the police have been scared. They've been scared to enforce the existing laws. Even before Israel had responded, that we saw at the Sydney Opera House on October 9, the police looked on, they warned the Jewish community, stay home for your own safety, and they failed to prosecute people. They came up with their own interesting version of events of what they heard, where's the Jews? But either way...
Like that matters, though.
Yeah, either way, whatever was said, we know there's people breaking the law, police standing in front of police, being filmed, and the police do nothing.
Now, your organisation has, I can see, really exploded. No pun intended, that was probably not a good use of words here, but since October 7, I think it's woken up a big part of the Jewish community who feel misrepresented for years and often didn't see the real threats in front of our faces. Firstly, have you guys seen an uptick in membership, and why do you think it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's been exponential. We were growing before October 7, but that really changed everything. I think there's been a shift in the community, people that maybe held some more, left of center, maybe idealistic, hopeful views. They've realized that in reality, it doesn't necessarily work. And they've come around much more to the thinking of what we were saying. And that's been helped by, for example, most of the Islamic leaders in Australia failing to come out and condemn October 7. It's really woken people up to what's going on. And I think we've even started to see some of the other Jewish organizations, their leaders are starting to say more of the type of things we've been saying for years.
I've noticed that too. In fact, I've had private conversations with some of them where I could see that they're making statements which are very similar to statements they had condemned your organisation and me personally for many years for making very similar statements. I guess better late than never. Hopefully it's just not too late. Now, AJA, your organisation is fighting for free speech beyond just disagreeing with or arguing against this legislation. I know that you guys supplied an affidavit in support of X against the e-safety commissioner. Can you tell me a bit about that?
We always have had free speech as one of the fundamental values of the AJA, and we think it's really important that different organizations, different people fight for it. So what happened after the stabbing of Bishop Marmari in the Assyrian church in Sydney? We shared the footage along with others on our social media. We thought it was important the community know what was going on. What happened was Meta, so Facebook, Instagram, removed the footage. They put sanctions on our account for sharing it. Whereas we received a message from Twitter saying, we just want to let you know we've been asked by the government to remove this footage. We're not going to comply. We're going to fight it. And just updating, which we thought was really good to let us know instead of just giving in like Meta did. So we became involved in the legal case for X, for Twitter, against the Australian government. And we think it's really important because, again, very similar to what we just spoke about, here we see the government using this as an excuse to stifle free speech. I mean, if they really cared about incitement, so they'd ban some of the inciting things that you can find online, some of the radical imams that are promoting the things that lead to these attacks. But instead, they want to ban the videos which show the consequences of the attacks. And that's important for people to see. People need to see where Islamic extremism leads to.
I absolutely agree. And in fact, if you go back to October 7, Meta did the same thing. They banned everything related to the terror attacks on October 7. And all that did was feed the narrative that it was a hoax. And now you're having to deal with denialism about the most horrific event against Jews since the Holocaust because you can't really find it on mainstream platforms anymore. It's insane. And all of this is supposedly designed to protect our community. Do you feel protected?
No, I mean, the Jewish community doesn't feel protected at all right now. We feel really isolated, really alone, abandoned by the government. And these kind of measures, we don't feel are for our protection. And it's quite relevant that Bishop Marmari also wants the footage online. So he doesn't feel it's for his protection either. So who are they protecting? What are they protecting? I don't know.
And why is free speech so important to the Jewish community from a Jewish perspective?
Well, Jews, I mean, aside from the religious basis for it and the historical basis, in our history, we've dealt with the consequences when free speech has been removed, whether that's been under communist rule in the Soviet Union or, to its extreme under Nazi rule. We know what it's like. We know it's important that people can speak up. It's important that information can be shared freely, that people can know what's actually going on. And just, many times in our history, it's been removed and the consequences have been terrible. It should serve as a warning to everyone.
To those in the community, in the Jewish community, that because they, and I can see it and I can feel it and I can understand it, they're feeling isolated, they're feeling scared, and they're looking at this proposal by the government, this proposed legislation, they're going, oh, at least the government is doing something. They might not be happy that voices like yours or even mine are fighting the government on it. What would you say to those within our own Jewish community that think that this is a good idea?
Say they should be very careful what you wish for. Once these laws come in, who knows what it will be used for? Who knows who it will be used against? Just be very careful who you trust. I understand the Jewish community is very scared. It's feeling very alone. It's reaching out for anything to help protect us. But new laws are not necessarily the answer, and we should be very, very careful with trusting the government, which has failed our community on many, many occasions.
If you think it's important for Australians to hear what the Jewish community really believes in regards to these proposed legislation in our name, please like, comment, but most importantly, share this interview far and wide. And then if you're enjoying our very first interview from the studio, go to buildourstudio.com. We still need some help to cover the costs of building this state-of-the-art facility. Buildourstudio.com. There's more to come, plenty more to come, but we cannot do it without you. Buildourstudio.com.